While one in general is rewarded with material happiness, this hardly indicates that action, the agent, or the consequences of action are inherently existent. Rather, this more sophisticated opponent suggests the nature of the link is completely abstract, like a legal obligation. 12. If such an analysis were advanced, there would be many great errors. Therefore, this analysis is not tenable here.
13. I will then explain what is tenable here, the analysis propounded by all Buddhas, self-conquerors and disciples according to which 14. Action is like an uncancelled promissory note and like a debt. Of the realms it is fourfold. Moreover, its nature is neutral. Using the metaphor of a promissory note, the defender of this view compares action and its consequences to a document attesting to a particular debt or other legal action. Though the act to which the document attests was in one sense momentary, its consequences, and the evidence of its reality, are unlimited in duration. So the consequences of any action, however local that action might appear to be, reverberate through all realms of existence. Moreover, the fundamental nature of action and its consequences is neutral. That is, simply considered as such, on this view, neither action or its consequent trace is either positive or negative. Any particular action or trace may of course be so, but action itself is equally capable of being positive or negative in character. We now turn to specific advice to enable one to realize the nature of reality and to abandon the mundane concerns and attachments that lead to binding actions, advice with which Nagarjuna would not take issue. 15. By abandoning, that is not abandoned. Abandonment occurs through meditation. Therefore, through the non-expired, the fruit of action arises. Simply by resolving to abandon attachment one cannot thereby succeed in shedding it. It is difficult to accomplish this. Attachment arises as a consequence of the persistent, pervasive psychological, verbal, and physical habits that together constitute what Buddhist philosophers call the root delusion, the ignorance of the true nature of things. That delusion consists in confusing existence with inherent existence and issues inevitably in one of the two extreme views: reification or nihilism. Only through extensive meditation on the nature of phenomena and on the nature of emptiness can these habits be abandoned, and only through an understanding of the ultimate nature of things can the fruit of actions done through abandonment, that is, liberation from the suffering of cyclic existence, be attained. The promissory note metaphor is at work here as well. The idea is that one cannot simply cancel a promissory note on one's own without paying the debt. One must do something more substantial to discharge one's obligation to one's creditor.
16. If abandonment occurred through abandoning, and if action were destroyed through transformation, the destruction of action, etc., and other errors would arise. If one thought that one could just resolve to abandon attachment and delusion and succeed, that would be to treat attachment and attached action as trivial entities, even as illusory in the full sense. Just as when one sees a mirage, one can, knowing that it is a mirage, stop seeing it as water. That is possible for illusory things, but not so for empirically real ones. It takes effort to see an actual puddle as empty, not of conventional water, but of non-conventional inherent existence, and it takes effort to stop reifying habits. Again, though this is articulated in defense of the opponent's view, this is a sophisticated opponent, and Nagarjuna in fact agrees with much of this. 17. From all these actions in a realm, whether similar or dissimilar, at the moment of birth only one will arise. One performs countless various actions in one's life. And the confluence of the karmic consequences of all of them, on this view, are realized in the beginning of a single individual at the moment of rebirth, the one who arises. This comment is, of course, most directly about rebirth and the mechanism of karma in transmigration. Here is a way to understand that explicit point. The mechanism by which karma operates in rebirth is not that each individual action in a continuum designated as an individual remains permanently in place or leaves a substantial trace that lies dormant until it produces its consequence. This is indeed how karma is often conceived by substantialist Buddhist schools. Rather, each moment of such a continuum, including the moment of rebirth, is a consequence, through the mechanism of dependent arising, of all of the previous moments of that continuum and, of course, of much else besides. Those karmic consequences are, as it were, summed up in the total state of the individual at birth.
But of course the implications of this are more general and concern every moment of any life. They can hence be made independently of any discussion of transmigration, though of course they help to demystify that Buddhist doctrine, at least as it is conceived in Mahayana philosophy. The point is this: every moment of our lives represents the causal consequences of, inter alia, all of our prior actions. No action lies dormant, waiting for its consequences to emerge. Nor does any action somehow become cancelled when some salient consequence is noticed. There is no accounting kept, and no debit and credit system either from the causal or the moral point of view in the continuum of human action and experience. Rather, at each moment we are the total consequence of what we have done and of what we have experienced. And the only sense in which some past action may determine some future reward is one in which that past action, as well as other conditions, have determined a state now that, together with other future conditions, will determine that reward. Mutatis mutandis, of course, for negative consequences. This sober empiricist account of these matters forms the basis for Mahayana moral theory and its account of the nature of soteriological practice. In this visible world, all actions of the two kinds, each comprising action and the unexpired separately, will remain while ripening. But here the opponent slides over into the substantialism that Nagarjuna will criticize. For although he has characterized actions as impermanent, he has retained the seed and sprout metaphor that has the actions identifiable over time and, hence, as having an independent existence and identity. Moreover, he suggests, their consequences are determinate in time, delimited by death or nirvana. That fruit, if extinction or death occurs, ceases. Regarding this, a distinction between the stainless and the stained is drawn. Nagarjuna now mounts a reply against all of these positions collectively. Emptiness and non-annihilation, cyclic existence and non-permanence, that action is non-expiring is taught by the Buddha. All phenomena, including action, its result, and the connection between them, will come out to be empty of inherent existence, yet conventionally real. They will be part of cyclic existence, but will be impermanent. This is not surprising. But Nagarjuna also says that no action expires, retaining the promissory note metaphor. Obviously, he cannot mean that actions are permanent. Rather, we should understand this to assert two related theses.
First, it indicates that the consequences of actions do not cease at some point. All actions have ramifications into the indefinite future, due to dependent arising. Second, actions themselves, being empty of inherent existence, are not entities capable of passing out of existence, when passing out of existence is interpreted to mean the cessation entirely of something that once existed inherently. Since actions are not inherently existent, they are not suitable bases for inherent cessation. And this resolves the final apparent paradox, the tension between the assertion that nothing is permanent and that all action is non-expiring. All phenomena are indeed impermanent, but that entails both that they do not inherently cease, and that their effects are indefinite in scope. Because action does not arise, it is seen to be without essence. Because it is not arisen, it follows that it is non-expiring. This verse emphasizes the second reading of the thesis of the non-expiration of action and echoes the arguments from chapter 7.